Just waiting 2 minutes for everybody to get coffee and sit down. Okay, so we can start. So welcome you to this panel. My name is Steffi de Jong. I'm an associate professor for public history at the Norwegian University of Science and Technology in Trondheim. I've done quite a bit of research on media and digital media and memory and how they relate. I've written a research project on representations of concentration camps and extermination camps in virtual reality, and at the moment I've got a project on the precursors of reenactment in the 19th century, where I look at how embodiment, immersion, and the representation of history play together. And I've been joined by Hannah Price. Hannah is a creator of immersive events, theater and VR experiences. She's the creative director of the Gunpowder plot that we are going to talk about today. The Gunpowder plot, you will see it in a minute, is an immersive theater and VR experience for layered reality. She's also creative director of the new immersive museum of Shakespeare for Bombers and Par, opening in 2025. Moreover, she's an award-winning freelance theater director, founder, and previous co-artistic director of Theater Uncut. She has been trained at WADA, the National Theater, and Donmar Warehouse. And her theater directing and immersive experience work has been seen across the world with shows in Istanbul, Copenhagen, Paris, Toronto, Switzerland, and more. As a performance director, her work on video games is multi-BAFTA nominated, and she's worked on some of the world's biggest game titles, including Final Fantasy XVI, Alan Wake 2, the Lego and Star Wars franchises, and her work on video game control helped to earn a record-breaking 11 BAFTA nominations. On my right, your left, I'm joined by Marco Giovanni Ruzza. He's a Berlin-based, multidisciplined creative director with more than 20 years of experience in the field of experiential, spatial, and interaction design. He is the creative director of the Quake project that we are going to talk about today, which won the Themed Entertainment Association Award for the category of Outstanding Achievement, Historical Experience, Limited Budget. He graduated with cum laude with an MA in Industrial Design from the Polytechnic University in Milan and the Technical University in Delft. And since then, he's worked for several international design companies, such as Joa Vision Berlin and Rijnsberg in the Netherlands, Northern Light Co-Design in Amsterdam, and IKEA Retail in Padua, Italy. He's mostly worked on projects for leisure companies, tourist attractions, branded visitor centers, and educational institutions throughout Europe and the Middle East and Asia. So amongst his projects are Terra Phenomena in Utrecht, the Panda Experience that we have to talk about at some point as well in Chengdu, China, the Young Rembrandt Studio in Leiden, and the traveling exhibition Legendary Trunks by Louis Vuitton. He's been the guest speaker at the House of Leisure in Oistwijk, at the JSOR Institute in Doha, Qatar, the MAPIC show in Cannes, France, and the Boccioni University in Milan. And he's also a certified fitness trainer.
That's good. That's good. Correct.
So Hannah and Marco, I would now ask you to present your projects, and we're starting with Hannah and the Gunpowder plot.
So I have a video to show you, so we will watch that first. Oops. How do I get it to play?
I think that was it.
Okay. I don't know how to make it play. That's great. It's playing.
The Gunpowder plot immersive experience is, I think, a whole new way of experiencing history.
This experience tells the story behind this. You will be a spy infiltrating the Gunpowder plot.
You get asked to be inside it, you get to feel everything, you get to meet the people, you get to smell it, touch it, hear it, and we do that through both the magic of theatre and through technology.
Virtual reality takes you back to being a kid again. It gives you that sense of magic, and to be able to take people literally into Jacobean London. You are going to go down the River Thames and see London as it was in 1605.
My role in it begins with drawing visuals of the sorts of things that the audience can expect to be surrounded by or to experience.
So when the audience are in the experience, they will be underground in the Tower vaults next to the Tower of London. It's a really great place to experience this story because it's so close to where many of the key events of the story happen.
We are separated here from the people that were part of this extraordinary plot only by time and not by location.
This is not like anything you've seen before. You will never have been immersed in this way. It's entertainment, you're with people, and you're on a mission.
A lot of people are going to have the kind of experience that they will remember for a very long time.
Where else can you step back to 1605 and infiltrate history's most famous plot?
The Gunpowder plot, immersive, will take you back to 1605 and put you in the heart of history's most daring conspiracy.
Well, there you go. And that was Danny Robbins, who is very quiet normally, and you put a camera on him and he's like that. So this is our poster. We talk about this in a bit, actually, about why it's marketed in this way, and I'll just talk to you a little bit about what it actually is. So it was a co-production between Layered Reality, who have a number of other large-scale immersive experiences, and Historic Royal Palaces, which is the charitable organisation that runs a lot of the big cultural locations around the UK, including the Tower of London. It's in the Tower of London vaults, as you saw there. It's 25,000 square foot, and it's a linear experience with a full story. So it is like being in a film of the Gunpowder plot. It's probably the thing it's most like. It's 90 minutes. The audience have a very specific role. They're asked to be spies inside the plot. We have audience groups of 16 that go through every 10 minutes because we have 7 spaces. So there's always 16 people in each space at a time, and it runs all day. So it rotates around like a kind of carousel. And in terms of the tech, we have 3 VR rooms, 1 ambisonic sound space, and 1 full-scale projection space amongst all kinds of other innovative tech behind the scenes, which allows it all to run on rails, as in we don't have stage management. And it's been running for over 2 years, and I think we're up to around 170,000 visitors now. And we've won a TripAdvisor award and various other kind of accolades, which has been amazing. But in terms of what it feels like, when you get there, you are asked to go into this environment and take an active role in the story itself. So, for example, when you turn up, there's a briefing room, you learn about a bit of the history, and pretty much the first thing that happens is that you're asked to light the fuse, and on the table in front of you is a big map of London at the time, and when you light the fuse, the river goes on fire, it lights a door, and you get asked to follow the fuse, and that leads you round the experience. You are then put into a dungeon in the Tower of London, and told that you are assumed to be Catholic, which is obviously important for this story. And when you are in that room, you meet other Catholics who are being held prisoner in the Tower, and you converse with them, and you get to understand a lot about the persecution of that time. And then another person comes in, and they rescue you, and they are from the side of the crown, and they lead you out and they take you through the tower into a space where you are given your mission, which is that the plot is coming up and we need Catholics to infiltrate it. And this is done through everything from smells, airflow, temperature, tactile surfaces, everything that you would expect, as well as the technology that we use.
Okay.
I also have a video, but I think I need the remote to play.
Sorry.
Yes. Let me see if it works. I'm going to show you just a quick video just to give you an impression, and then I'm going to explain you something more. can feel it, the earthquake, right? Very good, very good. So this is just a brief introduction. I hope it gives you a little bit of the impression and emotion, but then the question is, of course, what is Quake, yeah? So Quake is quite similar to the project of Hannah. It's an immersive walkthrough experience, meaning you have a certain amount of rooms where you have to go through. It's a group experience as well. It means that you go with a group of maximum 16 people through each room. It is timed. That means that every 12 seconds a new group comes in and you have to move on and on in the different rooms. It's immersive in the sense that you have a combination of different technology, from theming and decoration, so the reconstruction of some sort of spaces. You have projection mapping, you have multimedia games, you have hands-on exhibits where you can play and do things. And of course, it's a group experience where you share emotion. But in the specific, this museum, this experience talks about and presents the big quake of Lisbon, November 1st, 1755. It's quite an important date for Lisbon and also actually for Europe itself, because that's when it happened, the big quake. It happened not far away from the coast of Lisbon. It affected Portugal, Spain, and Morocco in a very devastating way. A 7.7 magnitude earthquake, quite impressive. It happened on the 1st of November, so for the Catholic Church, it's quite an important day. It's All Saints' Days. Everybody was in the church. 9 in the morning, it strikes. 3 quakes. A lot of people, of course, stayed under the debris of the church falling down. Not only that, half an hour later, a tsunami came, surprising people that were trying to find their way out, trying to find shelter. Not only that, right after, for 2 days, the whole city was burning. Because, of course, in the church, there were a lot of candles, a lot of banners, so a fire started afterwards. You could imagine that a tsunami could turn everything off, but actually it was not the case, because everything was built with wood, so the city was burning for the rest of today. You can imagine it could have been like a hell, completely like a hell. It's not only that, it's an important event in the history of Portugal, but I would say also for Europe and the rest of the world. We say when we present the project, it was an end of an era. At that time, Portugal was the world power, I would say. Because of that, because of the impact of this event, the whole country suffered. And people say that it was the beginning of the end for Portugal as an empire. And to some extent, it gave the possibility to the British people to take over control. But with everything that ends, there is always a new beginning, right? So the event itself, it says that it marked the birth of seismology as a science. Because right after that, Portugal and Lisbon had to find their way out. And I will tell you later on. But the city was rebuilt. So under the surveillance and the ideas of creative and architects, they say that actually the rebuild of the city started the new way of building in a seismologist, anti-seismic way. And they also say to some extent that it might have been the start of the Age of Enlightenment. Because right after that, in whole Europe, there was like the start of talking between philosophers, Voltaire, Kant, and Rousseau, about, does God exist? Like, if it can happen, that in such an important day, such a dramatic event happens, does God exist? So they say that it was actually the start of a debate between philosophers and society to say, is this what it is? Like, maybe we have to think about things in a different way. So we say that the Lisbon quake is also marked the start of the Age of Enlightenment. What it is quake in terms of experience? It's a combination of historical education, science presentation, but at the same time also entertainment. That was basically the briefing that we got from our client. We want to combine history, we want to be scientifically correct, but at the same time, somehow we want to involve people with entertainment. It is located in Lisbon. I don't know if you are acquainted with Lisbon, but it's located in Belém, so slightly outside of the center, very close to the museum district, right in front of the shore of the river. In this image, you see an explosion, let's say, of the building and of the experience. I might move around to show you, to explain you just a little bit how everything works. You saw in the video, the motto is expect the unexpected, yeah? And that is a good representation of what it is. As a visitors, you get a ticket and then you are asked to go from the main floor downstairs, waiting for you to start the visit. Everything looks like a regular museum, right? Maybe even boring, maybe something that you, oh, I don't know if I want to visit this. We have a timer, countdown, and when it's time to go, suddenly a hidden door opens up. You say, whoa, wow, what are we going to do now? And then you have to go inside, and basically, instead of entering the main entrance, you access another door. You find yourself in an abandoned laboratory. It seems like nobody's living there. With projection mapping and technology, basically we are telling the story to visitors that this is the laboratory of Professor Louis, which is a seismologist. He's been studying this event for a long time, but he's getting old and his memory is fading away. Together with his memory, everything that he's been researching and writing is also fading away. So you have a mission. You as a visitor, you are recruited to go on a mission and find out some things and bring them back to his laboratory. But before doing that, you need to be trained, right? So he made a training center here where you can start and learn everything about seismology, volcanoes, earthquakes, tsunami, because you need to survive, right? Because right after that, you're gonna go back in time with the time machine that he made for you, and you're gonna go back, survive the earthquake, survive the tsunami, survive the fire, and then bring back those documents. So basically, you go with the time machine back in time in the streets of Lisbon right before the event. You're going to enter the church, and in the church, you're going to experience the earthquake with simulator, with the chairs moving around, projection mapping, everything falls down. You're almost about to die, but you survive, of course. And then you find yourself in the same streets of Lisbon, but completely destroyed. Despair, drama, and everything else. There you get to know the experience of what the survivor might have experienced. And then from there, you go up, 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 and you have the chance to talk to a number of survivors. Different kind of people with different backgrounds, and then from there you get to know them, you collect information that you are about to save and bring back to Professor Louis. In the last room, it's the end show, when everything wraps up, you get to understand why you were on a mission. Actually, you were not there to find the document. Actually, Professor Louis tells you, I want you to be interested in the story itself so that you are able to tell this story on and on and on in the generation. Why this? First of all, because we are responsible for bringing on the information to the next generation, but also because we have to learn from the past. We need to be prepared for the next one. The next one is going to come. We don't know when, but we know that it will. So we as society, we need to be ready for the next one. So by creating this interest and, engaging with the people, everybody will then be aware about the fact, yeah, in Lisbon, it happens again. Are we ready for this? Yes, no. Do we do something? We're going to do something. So basically, that's what Quake is in a very nutshell. Just to give you a brief overview, it was open 16th of April 2022. It was a 7-year works from concepting to opening. It's a venue of approximately 1,800 square meters, 9 rooms of experience. And as I said, we have 16 people going in every 12 minutes, so it's a theoretical hourly capacity of 144 people. The duration is almost 1.5 hours. 13 companies were involved. Back then, 1 year ago, it was 100,000 visitors, and there were approximately 37 people involved. That's basically it. I hope I gave you just a general view of the project.
Yeah, thank you very much. So I think we've all now almost booked our next holidays in Lisbon and London. And I think it's very interesting about those experiences is that they put the visitor into a very special position, right? You're partly a participant, you're partly an actor, you're partly an observer, but you're also partly a student because you're also supposed to learn something. So can you tell us something about why you chose this particular mode of storytelling? What do you think makes this mode, this multimedia and very body-engaging mode of storytelling, especially appealing for educating people?
Should I go? Want to go first?
Yeah. I mean, we had a challenge, we had a mission, so the briefing from the client was indeed to immerse people in the story. First of all, because we had to do with history and science, something that maybe for the target group we had, which is family and kids from school, maybe it's not the most appealing thing, you might get bored quite easily. So we had to make sure that the visitors could find themselves in the story. We also had a context to take into consideration, which is the Portuguese world of museums. The museums in Lisbon are quite institutional, and the client wanted to be something unique, to make the difference compared to the other. At the same time, they also had to think about competitors with other tourist attractions that there are in the city. They needed to have the attention of people. So the choice was for this kind of storytelling because it's a kind of broad way of talking to people, making sure that you retain the attention. We know nowadays how the attention from people is very short-timed. You needed to have people there and make sure that they are attracted to the topic itself. And third, the client wanted to position themselves as a gate, a sort of a portal where you start the journey from understanding and learning the history, but after that, you go on. So basically, the idea for us was we need to tell a story in a way that when visitors comes out from the experience, they say, wow, I never thought about Lisbon in this way. And oh, maybe I should go home and talk with my parents about, are we prepared for the next earthquake? So in that sense, that was the choice of using this way of storytelling.
So I also had a brief, which was which very much had technology as part of the what wanted to be used. But I think really the reason why this type of storytelling works is because, exactly as we will talk about, and everybody here has been doing in the last few days, is that when you experience something bodily, you remember it better. And that's really key, I think, to why I make experiences like I make them and how I approach that storytelling. There was an article, I think it was in Science Direct, that talked about, particularly educationally, you remember something like 70% more information if you've been experiencing it in a physical way. So for me, when I go into those things, and with my partner Tim, who we work a lot together, we go in and go, like, how do we make this story doing, not storytelling? How does this become super embodied so that everything that is being created in this space feels like somebody's actually experiencing it, so they remember it in a way exactly the way they remember anything else that they've done in their life. So I worked a lot with all kinds of different people who are specialists in things like smells, for example. So in the space, and I'm sure it's the same in yours, but we use smells, we use airflow, we use water drips on you, we use the right type of rock, the rock has to feel the right temperature. Everything is worked through to make sure that it feels like you're in that space. And obviously with history, and we'll talk about this in a minute because I know you want to talk about authenticity, so I won't go too far, but that has to also make the audience feel like they are there without doing things to them that like push them out of it because they're constantly learning about what the environment is or why it's like this and why the I'm going to save that because I know you're going to. So for us that was part of it. And also I'd say for our audience, they are completely active. They're given a very, very specific role, and they have to be that role in every space, which isn't the same in all experiences, and it isn't the same for all types of immersion. But with us, it has massive impact, because we had a question that was central to the experience as a whole, which is violence for a cause ever justified? So that meant that every single moment that we're in the experience, we're making sure that that question is central to that bit of storytelling. And particularly in the middle of the experience, we ask the audience that question. Do you want this plot to go ahead and side with the plotters, or do you want to side with the crown? And depending on what decision they make, it affects the second half of the show. So they are entirely part of the storytelling, not separate, not an observer, definitely within the heart of why the whole thing exists, is because their role is the story itself. Mm. Yeah.
Yeah, it's very interesting. I think we can continue discussing this, especially this relationship between entertainment and education. So I know a lot of my colleagues who would criticize this and say, well, it's basically just entertainment, you know, you're trying to make money out of giving people a nice experience. That's historical, but yeah, it's more entertainment. And what I find striking when I look at how both experiences are promoted, they are promoted more. We can maybe look at the poster of the Gunpowder plot again. They're promoted more like a blockbuster movie or a Western show. So yeah, the Gunpowder plot also stars Tom Felton, aka Draco Malfoy, as Guy Fawkes. And my question would then be: so, in how far do the experiences favor education over entertainment, or do they favor entertainment over education? And do we, turning that around, do we maybe need entertainment for good education? And then, maybe you know this, maybe you don't know this, how much do your audiences actually take away with them? Do you know what their learning outcome is?
You want me to start? Okay. I mean, I would say this, but I don't think education and entertainment are necessarily binary. And I don't think that all things that look at history necessarily have to be entirely educational. And I do think the Gunpowder plot is also educational. But I think in the UK, we have a really, really specific understanding of the Gunpowder plot. And it's not very accurate. We go and burn an effigy of him, you know, it's a bit awkward. And we also have now, sort of Hollywood has popularized it through V for Vendetta and whatever, as he's like a cult rebel hero. But actually the story is really dark. It's about Catholic persecution, and it's about a plot that, had it happened, would have caused a bomb crater of about a mile wide in a semi-medieval city. It would have killed thousands of people. It would have been awful. So when we're going in there and saying, is violence for a cause ever justified, and we're asking the audience to look at that, we're putting them in a very specific scenario where they're meeting people from both sides of the plot, and we plotted that extremely carefully. You get almost within minutes the exact amount of time with each side, people from each side of the plot, to make sure that we were making a very balanced scenario within it. So we're sort of smuggling quite serious themes within what is an entertainment thing. It's funny, I think, because I don't think people ask the same question of films. You've mentioned blockbusters, but nobody says, oh, blockbuster, oh, you're making a lot of money off that, or whatever, you know, you've got someone famous in it. Does that mean you can't seriously talk about history and its impact? So I think actually what we're doing is just using a format to discuss history in a way that should be entertaining, should be interesting. And people who come to it, yes, they come because they might like Draco Malfoy, they might like the Tower or whatever, but they still get that really in-depth discussion of history, and they still get to be inside it and feel what it means to them. We have, at the end of the experience, we ask people, and we sort of trace in various ways what people take away, and they always say that we look at the learning outcomes, and they always know the story of the Gunpowder plot so much better, with so much more nuance when they leave than when they came in, which is obviously great. Mm. Yeah.
In our case, when I show you the slide with the three pillars, history, science, and entertainment, then you can understand that for us, education is slightly a little bit more important than entertainment. But for the reason that I also told you before, we had some sort of challenges with other competitors, which are more like the touristic attraction in the city, but as well for looking for collaborations with other institutions, with other museums, and with schools. So I would say the balance in between is more slightly highly educational, but it definitely needed to be entertaining to attract that kind of people and bring them in, and then let them then continue the journey of learning, but also of entertaining right afterwards. Mm.
Yeah, and I'll probably just add that I don't know about the landscapes in other places, but in the UK, that type of experience could not happen without commercial investment, without investors. So to a certain extent, there is a remit that we need to sell tickets. And so obviously Tom Felton, who's brilliant, by the way, really lovely man, that helps with that. And if we want something like this on, we have to sort of also be practical about how we're getting it funded and how we're getting to actually achieve that thing occurring at all.
Mm. You should now all get a Mentimeter question, so I would ask you to get your phones out. And the Mentimeter question will basically ask you about the relationship between education and entertainment. Waiting for the presenter? What do you have to do?
Maybe you have to press the button?
No. The presenter is doing it. So now, now you should see it, right?
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting. Oh.
Ooh.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's.
I think I might have said the opposite of what I wanted to say.
That's fine.
What did you say then?
I just want the dry facts, apparently.
You want the dry facts, okay.
That's not what I was saying.
Okay, but that's about half-half. It's a little bit more in favor of colorful entertainment. It's interesting in a room filled with media.
Confusion.
People. Filled with confusion, okay. Okay, I think we could continue then talking about immersion. So I know that you, Hannah, say that immersion is an overused concept, and to a degree, I would agree. It's a very difficult concept. It's used by different disciplines, and it means something quite different in all of those disciplines. So if we talk about getting immersed in a book, that as a physical act is, of course, very different to getting immersed in a film, to getting immersed in a multimedia experience. So how would you define immersion for your experiences?
So there's so much contention about this. And the reason why I say it's overused is because we've got a lot of things in the UK that there's just a bit of projection and someone goes, oh, it's immersive, and there's not much past that, which is fine, totally legitimate, but I think it makes it difficult for audiences to understand what they're seeing. So for me, I would say it's anything that creates and uses a 360 environment, and there's different kind of levels. So from like a spatialized experience to adding multi-sensory to the sort of top end of like the most immersive you can get, where you are like the agent within the space. And I think there's a lot of confusion between those kind of levels, and I think it's very difficult sometimes to market things because people don't know what they're getting into.
In our case, in my case, I would say immersive is whenever you create an emotion, you're able to create an emotion in someone else, then you create a spark. And that's the way you can, in this case, with educational projects, to educate or teach something. We often use this quote, which is probably, you all know it, tell me and I forget, teach me and I remember, involve me and I will learn, right? So if you bring people within and relate them to something that they might have experienced, to create some sort of emotions, it will stay in your mind. So whenever you're done with your visit, it will stay, and maybe you will start talking with your friends or with your family. So how do you create emotions? One method is storytelling, so telling a story. So you have the facts of this event, seismology and science, but how do you present it? If you tell people there was a professor, he abandoned the story, and you tell them you are going on, it's like the narrative that we all know. It brings people in some sort of emotion. It happens with movies, it happens with books. So when you're able to create emotion, you can use storytelling and definitely the combination of different technology, like smells, sounds, visions, effects, and everything else. So whatever it helps you to create emotion, that is, to me, immersiveness.
So if I understand you correctly, it's for you, Marco, it's more about emotions, and for you, Hannah, it would be more about bodily involvement.
Yeah, I think because I spent so long working in theatre, which is obviously mostly over there, and thinking immersively for me is different. It's about thinking there. So it's about moving your perspective for me. Yeah.
Okay, I want to continue actually talking about this body in history. So my own research shows that this wish to get immersed in history physically with your body, it's already quite old. So we find it in mystery plays, we find it in pageants, we find it in tableaux vivants, living paintings, and then in the 19th century, of course, all the oramas, the panoramas, dioramas, and you know a lot of this. So what I also find striking is that a lot of those what is represented or in those immersive experiences is often quite brutal events. So we wouldn't have liked to be present at the time of the Lisbon earthquake, and I don't think I would have liked to be part of the Gunpowder plot because we know what happened to them in the end. So my question would be, where do you think this wish to relive histories that also quite brutal comes from? And what was the inspiration for your projects?
Do you want to start?
Yeah. I would say that's the oldest way of educating people. Like, if you think of religion itself, it's just like with ritual. You go to the mass and you do the same thing every time. You see like everything that is done also in the past. When you involve people physically, it's the best way for them to learn, also to be scared, to get them down. So it's nothing completely new. In the case of the earthquake, especially for the purpose we had to let people think about and be prepared for the next. Yeah, what is the best way to experience an earthquake if you haven't done it before, so you know what you could expect, and then from there you see, okay, maybe I should start thinking about being prepared for that. So I think that's our vision in this experience.
I think there's just a real human desire to like connect to people that came before. I mean, I think we're all here because of that, right? So wanting to go backwards in time is pretty much universal. Wanting to go and like put your hand through and feel what it was like in 1605 is like pretty universal human desire. And I guess making an immersive experience, you're giving people a way to do that in a very safe way. They know they're not gonna get hung, drawn and quartered, I hope. So they know that they can step back into that world and experience and feel it through a safety valve of that this is obviously isn't real. In the same way that, you know, you watch a film or whatever. It's a way to connect with the people and the history at the heart of like who we are and why we are, and it gives that valve like a really amazing opening point. I can go and stand in that room and feel it. I can be on a boat on the Thames in 1605 with Guy Fawkes, and also I can sail off into his vision of the future. Like these like technologies that we have and using them in an immersive way allows us like these access points into history that just don't really happen in other formats. I mean, that's just such an opportunity to explore that history in a totally different way. It was really magic working with a lot of the people who were working on the VR and stuff and being able to go, okay, we want to see his golden vision for the future. Why did he want so much to change things? Well, here you go. You can show your audience it. Yeah.
But doesn't it eventually comes down to the idea of living the same emotions of what they could have, which is like extreme emotions, but if you read it, you can only imagine, but if you're able to experience it somehow,
Yeah.
it becomes much stronger for you, and
Yeah.
you're able to find the empathy for what happened with the people back then.
Yeah, we have a room which is when a lot of Catholic people were hiding from priest hunters, they were called, used to hide the priests in the walls of their houses in priest holes. And so we have a part of the experience where you go inside a priest hole and you're in it, and we use separate ambisonic sound setups per space and live sound in the center, where you're in there, where they come into the house and they start smashing the house up and you can hear the dogs licking. And people get emotional about that. They feel that they understand what that persecution was like. And until I spent a lot of time in the Gunpowder plot, I didn't understand the jeopardy of that. But they're experiencing that jeopardy in a way they know that they can feel it, and they can kind of feel it viscerally, but they're not actually in danger. So it allows them that kind of conversation with history, if I can now imagine and understand it better, but I'm also not actually there, I'm not in it. So yes, the desire is like embodied empathy, I guess.
We have a similar thing, yeah? We have a similar thing in Quake. We have different situations, especially in the last room, which is called Sala dos Contos. So it's a room of the histories, when you are talking with the survivors. So we have a selection of characters, and we expressly choose different kind of people to kind of portray the society, the Lisbon society, very varied, from enslaved people, from priests, from noble. And then you have the chance in a very dark and intimate space to talk to this person. But you will never see this person, because we don't want to portray it with the face, because you might feel some sort of like connection or disconnection. So we recreate the scene where you're able to talk to this person and hear their witness. And they're telling you, oh my God, right after, I didn't know, I was completely dizzy, So you hear the story, and then you get in close contact with the people without really knowing them, without really having a face, but simply because of the story, the way it is told in different way, you get emotionally connected to it. And there you create the connection with the person, and you might even maybe feel the person itself. You might feel, oh, what if I were in that situation? So that was for us also a way to create the connection.
Okay. I'm making up this question now here, so you're not prepared for it.
Said you wouldn't do that.
Said I wouldn't do that, because I've just been thinking about what you're saying. So the cultural scientist Silke Arnold-Desmin, she's got this concept of dark nostalgia. And she says it's a nostalgia for a very dark time. She takes the Titanic craze as an example. But we can only have this nostalgia because we are so distanced from the events, right? Yeah. Because we know that we are physically safe, that this is not going to happen in the moment. And she kind of criticizes this a little bit. The other question about empathy, there's been a lot of discussion about this, and also in literature on VR. I've done a bit of discussion about it, and the question is always, well, do we actually have to relive something in order to understand it, or shouldn't empathy not also be what Sarah Ahmed calls a wish feeling? So I should feel for you, although I will never be able to understand what you were going through, right? I will never understand what it would be like to go through the Lisbon earthquake, but I should still empathize with you as a victim of this earthquake. So what would be your reactions to those concepts or ideas?
I would say both are good, and we also apply them in Quake, in the sense, of course, we let them people experience the earthquake with these simulator chairs, but of course we all know this is not real, right? But somehow you put them in the situation of trying to understand what it could have been. And at the second way, exactly what I just told with these characters, you let them witness what these people are telling them. Yeah, so you know that you are talking to someone, it's not you, it will never be you, but somehow because it's a human being, because it's telling some personal story, you find a way to connect and to say, I have empathy for you, yeah? So I guess both are still good. There are two different kind of ways, and in Quake, I think we use them both.
we have a sort of mechanism within the show that tries to create or explore the story and your part of it and you're going to the show, that place in history itself. So you get asked to light this fuse at the beginning and you're told to follow the fuse, and it's a kind of physicalization of how small events can kind of lead to massive things, and you're following this thing through. And then in the final part of VR, we move from then back to now, and we show Guy Fawkes in all the different kind of guises through history that people think of him as, and then we ask you very directly, is he a hero or a villain? It's up to you. So we try to contextualize your space within this experience as you're experiencing it, so that we're trying to ask some of those questions of what is this for, why are you here, what are you learning, and how does this experience add to the overall conversation of what this event was.
Okay, so I think we are going to end with the last question on authenticity. I had one more on embodiment, but I think we can use the Mentimeter to approach that question, and then we open up to the audience. So authenticity is as difficult a concept as immersion. It can mean that something is actually historical, like in the case of museum objects, but it can also mean that it seems as if it was real, right? Like in the case of reenactment, where you put a lot of effort into recreating the past so that it looks real. So how would you define authenticity for your projects, and what do you think is useful about the concept, or is it not useful at all?
Because we worked very closely with historic royal palaces, us as makers adopted their lexicon around it. So we used the term selective authenticity, which is something you'll probably all be aware of a lot, because we obviously needed to create a space where the audience felt like they were in the right space, in the right time, but sometimes actual history really gets in the way of that. We worked very closely with historians, so we did make sure that we weren't doing anything that they were uncomfortable with. But for example, when you look at what an audience wants out of the Gunpowder plot, the most famous thing really about it is, one of the things is like when he gets arrested. And when you read the actual documents that describe how he got arrested, it's really dull. He's in a cellar and a bloke comes in and then he goes, and then that's it. And nobody wants to go in that scene. It's dull. So we looked at other parts of history around it, and one of the things that is also very exciting about the Gunpowder plot is when the rest of the plotters left, they were under a siege, and we spoke at length with historians about is it okay if we combine those scenes to create a much more exciting scene, which is based in the historical fact but isn't historical fact. And they were like, absolutely, as long as we have a space where it's really clear where you took liberties and where you didn't. So we have a corrective area at the end called the Corridor of Truth, which was a jokey title and then stuck, where we lay out all the things that we looked at and changed. There's actually not that many, but there are a couple of major ones that we needed to make sure that we're really clear that that wasn't history. And the other part of the selected authenticity stuff is when we were making this, we started out with, we know the story, but we had to write the story, and it's written with a very good script writer. It's, you know, we planned it, whatever. When I'm directing theatre, you have a script, and the script becomes your Bible, and everything that you need to answer about how you're bringing it to life comes from that. But with this, the Bible was the history. So every time we got stuck, we would go back to the history and go, like, how is something in this history going to give us something that we can use? So, for example, we had a really big geographical problem in the storytelling where we needed to cross the river, which doesn't sound like a big deal, but if we suddenly put Guy Fawkes' house where he was storing the gunpowder on the wrong side of the river. It would be so inaccurate, it would be laughable. So we were like, how do we cross? We need to cross the river, but we've already got a boat later, and we've got a VR boat experience. And a historian said to us, oh, did you hear about the priest that escaped from the tower on a rope? They made a zip wire. And we were like, they did a what now? And when we looked at it, it was such an amazing story, and it became a key VR experience where you get to zip wire out of the Tower of London. And we use like real history for how that happened. They gave us a whole layout and pictures of how people would take bricks up on the police system, and so we kind of extrapolated off that and this story of this escaping priest, and you now have that as part of the experience. And of course it's not directly perfect history, but it is true. It does elucidate a lot about how the tower worked and how priests were kept in and out of the tower and daring escapes by amazing people, and it's also incredibly fun to experience and is a really interesting part of the show as a whole. Mm.
In our case, it was essential, and it was like the most important thing. First of all, because for instance, when our client came to us with the briefing, for your information, the client is a private enterprise, and they decided to do this. They had to fight already from the beginning with the institution just to gain the endorsement, simply because institutions and museums in Lisbon say you cannot do a museum from a private perspective, it needs to be public and something like that. So from the beginning they told us we need to be historically and scientifically correct to the millimeter. We have to. And I said, okay, that's a good challenge. I take it. And secondly, because it's an educational experience, so you want to educate people, and whenever you know that you are telling everything correctly to the visitors, it makes for the visitors themselves even more powerful. Because if you go to a theme park, you know that it's a story, right? So you might take it seriously or not. When you know that you're going there and everything that you've been told is exactly and correct, it gets more serious than what it could be. So for us it was important, essential, and a challenge. But I'm very happy. I was talking this morning with Gabi about it. I'm very happy with the cooperation and the collaboration we had. We had in the team, from the side of client, a team of academici. We had 2 seismologists from the University of Lisbon. We had an important historicus from Lisbon. And we were confronting with each other. I'm very happy with the fact that they were open-minded with us, and they were not just saying, oh, this is it, you have to say, and this. No, they were like open-minded in the sense that in many occasions they said, okay, this is the facts, and we need to say this and this and this. But in many times I said, but listen, these 2 elements are maybe not so relevant for the visitor. What about if we say this in this way? And they were able to see through my eyes and say, okay, we can find a way to a way out. So actually, I'm very happy with the end result, because they were happy, we were happy, the visitors are happy as well, and that it's a great achievement. Just for your information, the simulators in the church are like vibrating chairs, and we had to program them based on the real seismograph of the 3 quakes that hit Lisbon. Do we have the seismograph from them? No, but of course scientists, they told us they might have been something like this based on research, so we had to program the closest possible to what it was. So basically, if you go there and you experience the earthquake, you might experience what 99% of what it could have been, exactly the shakes at that time.
Okay, I would just ask, can we take a couple of questions? We started 5 minutes late, so...
I think we have 5 more minutes.
5 more minutes, okay. So then I would ask you to ask short questions and also water shortish answers.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hi, I have a very simple question. Can you tell us something about the production budgets of the things you did?
Am I allowed? Yeah. So what was it, like 5.5, 6 million?
In our case, everything from design to production, 3 million. 3 million from design to production. Everything that concerns the experience, not the building, 3 million.
Oh, that includes the building, and the building was very, very difficult. We had to remove thousands of tons of concrete and stuff, for example, and it's all listed. And there was a lot of dead rats. Yeah.
Which have been used afterwards for the decorations.
Kept them in there, yeah. Yeah.
Okay, and then there was 2 questions there.
Hi, thank you very much for the panel. I have a question to you because you said that there were 2 endings, right?
Yes.
This scenario.
Yeah.
For me, it sounds like a game, you know, where you make choices, and based on these choices, there is an outcome. Mm-hmm. Can I imagine it like that? Like there's a bad ending, like a good ending, and if yes,
no.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not a bad ending or a good ending. It's a personal ending. So we work really hard with repeating characters and repeating encounters, that you get a lot of time with real actors from both sides, from the plot and the crown sides. So depending on which side you choose, those individual people get badly affected. So you don't get to escape the impact of your own choices on the people that are involved.
Okay, so the choices do not affect an ending. So it doesn't mean that it's like a game, you make choices and there's an outcome for it.
What it does is change an entire scene. So one whole scene plays out entirely differently depending on which side you go for. But the very final scene is the same. So it does like a branching narrative back to the end. But the people that you've been involved with get very badly affected depending on which side. Yeah.
Did you guys get the second Mentimeter question? Then I'm not quite sure. Yes? Because okay.
Can I ask the final question?
Yeah, you can ask the final question.
The question to you, Marco. Are there any actual exhibits, old exhibits, or did you work mostly with replicas? That's question number 1. And question number 2, what about repeat visitors? As far as I understand, this is a museum probably mostly targeted to tourists and local schools, but at a certain time they will be able to see it all. So do you offer something for repeat visitors? And that's a question to both of you, actually.
Yeah, in terms of artifacts, we don't have any. The only thing we were able to acquire, or let's say legitimate acquire, were like paintings from other museums to be able to showcase in the multimedia. Everything else that we have in terms of decoration is recreated. Yeah, so it's like fully themed. So we don't have artifacts, but what we have in the training center is hands-on exhibit, like in science centers. So basically, like very simple mechanic games where you do and learn. That's what we have. In terms of repeated visit, yes. What I didn't say is that when you start the visit, you get an RFID bracelet where you can bookmark things throughout the experience, because since you have only 12 minutes per room, sounds a lot, but it's not. So you basically move on and move on. So you have the chance to bookmark things that you are then sent back home via email, a link to a sort of a database and further knowledge that you can build up. That is used for the programming with schools to continue studying, also for people at home, if you want to learn how to make a survival kit. And that gives you also the possibility for the museum to stay in contact with the visitors, to bring them back in case there is something new, for example, seasonal stuff, or there is a change in the exhibition. So as I said, Quake is kind of a portal. It starts with a visit, but it kind of continue on with the relationship between the museums and the visitors.
Okay, thank you very much. So there we have got the results from the Mentimeter. There's one question, I think, what does the research say? The research says, yes, there is a relationship between your body and memory. So you remember things better if your whole body is involved, and also if you're in several different places in the space. So when you learn for an exam and you go to different spaces, you might remember it better. That's at least what I know that the research says at the moment. Okay, thank you very much. There will be a 5-minute break now while we wire up the next speakers. So you can grab a cup of coffee and some food. We're ready in 1 minute. Okay, so there won't be a break.